Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. Bring you another show today. Obviously, it is October 12th, 2023. Uh, got some cool things to get into. A couple of the coaches and players met with the media. Actually, a lot of the coaches. So we had Coach Fry, Hartline, Larry Johnson, and then I had one thing on here that Kyle McCord had to say. So we'll get into that too. And then I want to talk about this Ohio State team, and I want to can they play the way that they should be able to play against Purdue, and kind of get into that intensity that they need to have when they go into the Penn State game. Because obviously, if they can't do that, then I don't think many of us are going to be confident that they're going to go in and beat Penn State. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing I wanted to talk about was obviously the coaches met with the media. Coach Fry, one of the things that he had to say was that he wants to take his line and get back to the core fundamentals, which I think is probably the right move, because right now they're struggling with gelling together and all that good stuff, but they need to at least be able to be fundamentally sound. And I think that you saw some of those issues come up, especially with like pass blocking this weekend against Maryland. And then the guys in the middle, Maryland had one defensive tackle slash like nose guard guy he was really giving Ohio State's interior line fits, and it was kind of messing up the run game a lot. So I don't know. Hopefully they get back to that, and then they come out this week ready to go. And then see here. Oh, he was also asked about like the offensive game plan and like basically asked about running stretch runs because Ohio State is known for doing that a lot. And that seems to be Ryan Day's like bread and butter, what he wants to go to in the run game. Um, he said that they're not going to cut that out. They spent a lot of time working on that already, which completely makes sense. So, again, they're going to continue doing stretch, but I think they definitely need to mix in some of those gap schemes because if they don't, teams are going to be able to predict what they're doing, which is I think what's happening right now. When you watch the ball and the entire defensive line automatically slants to where the play is going, that's kind of a giveaway or an indicator that hey, they're reading something and knowing what we're gonna do. So if they keep mixing that up, I think they'll be fine, especially with getting Travion Henderson back this weekend. And then the next guy I want to talk about, because Fry had some other things to say, but I mean, it wasn't nothing crazy. Just basically saying they need to get better, and he knows that, and he's working with them. And then Brian Hartline, he's one of the best interviews to watch. If you guys haven't watched it, I recommend go on, go on YouTube and look up the Brian Hartline interview. I think he's funny because he don't take no shit from the media guys. Like if they ask him a question and he don't like the question, you're gonna be able to tell he doesn't like the question, and he's gonna answer it like that too. So I don't know, but one of the things he said is they asked him how he feels about like the depth at the wide receiver position. He said he feels good about his two deep, and they asked him who, and he said it's a secret. He said it's a secret about a lot of shit. He wasn't gonna tell them nothing that he didn't want to tell them. But I went ahead and just put together what I think our two deep is probably. I would say Marvin Mecca Julian, obviously. And then I think maybe Xavier Johnson, Carnell Tate, and then the last one I'm struggling with, would it be Jaden Ballard? Probably. I mean, he's been in the games first when they start putting the two deep in. You look at the end of the last game, like the last drive, they had, I think it was Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and Xavier Johnson out there. So I don't know. I think that's probably the two deep. And then he was asked about the run game. He didn't really comment too much like schematically about it. He just said it's not good enough, but we have to run the ball. And I don't know. I don't know if Hartlines really has a ton of input on that. Being the offensive coordinator, I would hope that he did, but he didn't have much to say about it. He's also that kind of guy where he's not really going to go into much. Um, he was asked about like if he does plan to like rotate his wide receivers, and he said that my obligation and my duty to this team and to this organization, to the players, is to put the best guys on the field at all times, unless they need to be off the field for a reason. Then we can rotate a guy in, which I'm okay with that. I mean, I think that we're all excited about the younger guys, the Carnell Tates, the Brandon Ennis's, we're excited to see those guys play. But if we were in a close game and Carnell Tate was on the field instead of Marvin Harrison Jr. and he made a mistake, I feel like a lot of people would maybe turn on Carnell Tate, and that wouldn't really be fair to him because that play, that situation is designed for Marvin Harrison Jr. So I don't know. I think he can mix them in sometimes, especially if we get a lead. But at the same time, I don't want our fan base to turn on players like that because they make a mistake in a big moment. We've seen that happen plenty of times before where a guy messes up one time in a big moment and then everybody thinks he's garbage for his whole career, even though he's been good. One of the guys I would point to would be Kate Stover. He's been really good for Ohio State, but he had his worst game, I think, against Michigan last year. And people to this day think that he's garbage because of that. I've been one that's been defending him, but he definitely has to continue getting better. So all right, and then the last thing I just said, like Heartline don't take no shit. I wanted to just tell you guys what happened, in case you want to go watch it. Basically, someone asked him about Brandon Ennis, and they were like, he hasn't played much, but where is he? How's he coming along? And then Heartline kind of instantly responded and was like, look, if he's gonna play, I got to take somebody else off the field. And the guy was like, oh, I'm not saying that. And he's like, well, no, that is what you said. He's like, he's not taking no shit from them, and it's just funny. But ultimately, Brian Hartline said that Brandon Ennis is doing everything that he's asking him to do. He said that he's constantly getting better, and he seemed excited about him for the future, but not this year. I mean, not with the guys that they have in the wide receiver room now. So we'll look forward to that next year. Maybe Brandon Ennis will be a starter next year. Maybe Ennis, Tate, and Jeremiah Smith, maybe true freshman. I don't know. We'll see. All right. And then moving on to Larry Johnson. He only had really one thing that was like super interesting to me. He said that when the other team is getting the ball out fast, what he expects from his guys in that situation is to push the guy in front of them back and try to get their hands up and bat the ball down. Which, I mean, that makes sense, but I think that may explain why we've seen so much. We've seen it so many times of our guys that are just bull rushing. They're not necessarily out there trying to put spin moves on people, not trying to go outside and get the angle. I mean, maybe they're doing that a little bit too much. They're thinking that everybody's going to do nothing but quick game against them, and they can just bull rush the guy back and try to get their hand up. But I did think that was interesting just simply because it does seem like our defensive ends, especially just kind of doing nothing but bull rushing, has been an issue this year. All right, and then that was it for Larry Johnson. He talked about other stuff, but nothing super interesting to me at least. And then the last thing about interviews, I know this is just kind of going over stuff, but the last thing about interviews, Kyle McCord was asked about what they need to do to make sure that they can start fast. And basically he said it's like a mental thing. And he said, I thought this was interesting. He said, if Coach Day calls a shot, take the shot if it's there. And I think that's something that kind of explains what's been going on with this team. And I've been saying it so much, but everybody keeps saying Ryan Day's play calling. I personally think that Ryan Day is calling really good plays in the right situations, and Kyle McCord is just not letting the ball rip. I've been saying that this whole time. I still think that, and I think that Kyle saying this kind of confirms that, and that he feels that way, because he didn't really blame anything else for their slow starts other than like it's a mental thing, and if they call the play, we have to make sure we make the play if it's there. So hopefully we'll see that from him this week, because I still think that he could be a good quarterback, man. I've been up and down with this situation, but I do think that Kyle McCord can still end up being one of the top maybe 7 to 8 quarterbacks in the country, and maybe even top 5 if he like really turns it on. But he's gonna have to let the ball loose and not be. Honestly, I think that he's playing like he's scared he's still gonna lose the quarterback job, and that doesn't make no sense to me because, as far as I'm concerned, Devin Brown is banished to shadow realms until next year, and we'll just, I guess, see if Kyle comes back or not, and then I'm sure Devin will have to decide what he wants to do. But I just feel like Kyle's still playing like he's scared he's going to lose the quarterback job, and I hope that he stops doing that because I think if he does, he has arm talent. He doesn't just make errant throws all the time, but then again, he's also not throwing the ball, so Who knows? Maybe he will. Everybody says one of his biggest things is not turning the ball over. But let's say we get in a situation where we're down 10 points with 8 minutes left in the game and he has to throw the ball. Is he going to turn the ball over then? I don't know. I mean, we had the one situation versus Notre Dame. He did throw the ball right to a defender. They just didn't catch it. But then he also, got a couple of those passes in there and won the game. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully he'll let it rip this weekend and then going into the Penn State game. So the last thing I have, or not the last thing, but the next thing I have here is kind of the main topic of the show, and that's can this Ohio State team play to their potential in this game versus Purdue, and ultimately in this season going forward. And I think that they can. I think that this past week against Maryland, is going to be kind of a wake up call for the offensive line, for the run coordinator. I guess Josh Fryer is the run game coordinator. But when I say run coordinator, I mean whoever the hell is making the decisions, like let's run this play at this time in terms of running the ball. Because I don't know if Ryan Day is doing that or if he's getting some input from other people. But I know that he's the ultimate one who calls the plays. So whoever's doing that, whoever's deciding what plays to run, I think they're going to start mixing it up. I think the offensive line is going to be challenged this week because honestly, there was a lot of bad film for them out there from last week. And I think that getting Travion Henderson back after him taking a week off and being fresh is going to be huge. And I think that Ohio State's run game is about to kick it up a notch. And when that happens, I also think that that's going to open things up for Kyle McCord because he's shown that he can hit wide open people. He's shown that multiple times this year, but it's not always there, especially when the run game's not working. But if they get that going, there's going to be more guys open downfield, and I think that Kyle will feel a lot more comfortable hitting those guys in those bigger windows. So I think this week the offense is going to take off. And then as far as the defense goes, I think that they're just going to continue getting better and better. I don't really know if there's like injuries in the linebacker room. I've heard whisperings of that, like potential Steel Chambers has an injury. Tommy Eichenberg is not 100%. But at the same time, I mean, if they're injured, maybe they need to take this week off. I don't know. Maybe we need to mix things up this week. But I still think overall the defense is going to continue getting better just because I think that the secondary throughout this year, I think they started off this year very good, and they've gotten better every single game. And that's leading up to the Maryland game, which is potentially the best passing offense that Ohio State plays this year. Maybe it's at least top 3. So I don't know. I think the secondaries continue to get better, and so has the defensive line. And I think that we may see a mixture of defensive linemen this week, as opposed to like looking back at the Notre Dame game where JTT and Jack Sawyer played the entire game, every single snap. I think they're going to mix it up. Honestly, looking at the film from last week, again, shout out to Minister Sports, their Patreon. They have the all 22 film breakdowns. It's worth it if you haven't signed up for that. But looking at the film, Jack Sawyer honestly put some nasty things on film this week. And I mean that in a bad way. Like his effort didn't look like it was there. And Maryland's left tackle had him in a chokehold the whole game. He couldn't do anything. So I expect to see them mixing it up because they did ultimately mix it up in the Maryland game. And Caden Curry and even Kenyatta Jackson were both given that left tackle fits, and Jack Sawyer was not. But again, I think it all comes back to what I said originally about the defensive ends. In my opinion, is that JTT and Jack Sawyer should be on one side, and then Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry on the opposite side. Unless it's a team that is just going to run the ball, then maybe have JT and Jack out there. But having that speed guy out there with that powerful guy like JTT, Jack Sawyer, both powerful guys, and then Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry both have the speed. I think that you need a mixture out there, especially when you're watching the game and you're watching one of your defensive ends just kind of get locked up all game. So I think that we will see the defense step it up a notch this week, and I could see them maybe pitching a game where Purdue doesn't reach 10 points, maybe like 7 points, 6, 3, dare I say a shutout. It's been a while since we've had a shutout. Something like that. I think that our defense is really going to step it up. And ultimately, that's just going to put the offense in a better position. So they put it together this week, and they have Ohio State fans, uh, including myself, excited to go into the Penn State game as opposed to kind of like, damn, I don't really think that we could beat Penn State right now, which is where I think a lot of people are at right now. So we'll see. I mean, I think personally right now, without seeing a good game this weekend, I think that Ohio State's defense would have to play out of their minds and create like 3 or 4 turnovers. Maybe not 4, 2 or 3 turnovers in order for Ohio State to beat Penn State at this current moment. Typically, they do create turnovers against Penn State, but this is a different Penn State team this year, and they don't allow turnovers. They have one of the highest turnover ratios in the country in terms of the creative versus giving up. And I think their quarterback still hasn't thrown an interception. So they haven't played a secondary like Ohio State's either. So I do think we could create a turnover or two, but if the offense doesn't start playing better at this time, I feel like it needs to be more like 3, maybe 4 turnovers in order for this to be a game and the defense to just completely lock them down. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I think that this weekend will give us more hope, though, about the offense because at some point, I think that Ryan Day just needs to take control of the situation and just be like, look, either whatever the problem is, Ryan Day needs to fix it. And I think that he can. That's why I'm going to stick to my guns for now that I think this offense is going to continue getting better. All right, so my last thing here for today, I have my hot takes, bold predictions, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to get into those now. This is specifically for the Purdue game. So my first one, I have the return of Travion Henderson. I'm going to say he goes over 150 yards in this game. I think that with the offensive line being challenged and the way that the run game looked last week, I think that that's going to be a little more of an emphasis in this game. The weather's not supposed to be great this weekend either, and I just think that Travion Henderson is going to have a big day because they're going to want him to be in the swing of things going into the Penn State game. So that's my number one. My number two is going to be 2 sacks from the defensive ends. They only have one this year. The JT Tuimoloau got a sack against Maryland, and that's it. I think we get 2 of them. And I'm going to say they come from JT Tuimoloau and Kenyatta Jackson. This next one's might be a little crazy. All right, McCord throws for 3 touchdowns. Again, like I was saying before, I'm expecting this offense to get it going. And this, I don't think that McCord is going to throw for like 400 yards or nothing like that. But I think that he could throw 3 touchdowns. And this team has been really bad in the red zone. But if you look back at the Maryland game late in the game, when they were in the red zone trying to score, they scored back-to-back touchdowns on passes to Marvin Harrison Jr. One of them was called back due to a phantom penalty. But I think that McCord is going to get it together and start letting the ball loose this week, and he'll throw 3 touchdowns. My next one's the defensive one. I'm going to say Denzel Ward. I wish. Denzel Burke gets an interception in this game. He's had one this year. Just predicting any specific guy to get an interception is going to be bold. It's going to be a hot take regardless. But I think that he's just going to continue getting better as the year goes on. And I don't really think that Purdue has wide receivers that are going to challenge him. At the same time, they have a quarterback that I think is going to be willing to throw the ball. Hudson Card, he came from Texas. He's going to be willing to get the ball downfield. And I think that they're going to try to challenge Denzel, and he's going to take one away from him. All right, and then the last thing I have here, or the last hot take, bold prediction, is I think that someone on Ohio State's team will get a receiving touchdown other than Cade Stover, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Emeka Egbuka. Obviously, Emeka's probably not going to play, but I'm going to say, so basically I'm looking at a guy like Julian Fleming, Carnell Tate, Jaden Ballard, somebody like that, or Xavier Johnson to get a receiving touchdown, which so far this year there's only 1 touchdown outside of those 3 players, and it was Carnell Tate, and it was in garbage time against Western Kentucky, I think. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. That's the end of my show for today. Obviously, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll be live again tomorrow at 10 a.m., so join me then, and we can talk Ohio State football, maybe get in the chat, and if you have any questions or anything. But peace out. You guys have a good day.